Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are from the second group from Natural Science Education Study Program 2019. And here we want to explain about weather, climate, and season from course Earth and Space Science. Okay, so this is the third material that we gonna explain for you. The first is about weather, the second climate, and the third is season. The first is about weather. So weather is a state of air at a certain time and in a certain area that is relatively narrow or not wide and at a short period of the time. In the other definition of the weather is a daily air condition in a certain place and covering a narrow area. This weather condition can change every day. So the first picture is you can see the the month of January until December weather in our Earth. Okay, the next is about weather. Weather is basically an atmospheric condition, especially with respect to its effect on human life and activity. The difference between weather and climate is that weather consists of short-term change or minute to month in the atmosphere. Weather is also related to temperature, humidity, precipitation, turbidity, brightness, visibility, wind, and atmospheric pressure, such as high and low pressure. Okay, the next is in most places, the weather can change from minute to minute, from hour to hour, from day to day, and season to season. Climate, however, is the average weather over time. The weather itself is volatile. It is caused by an air pressure, temperature, wind, humidity, and also rainfall. Okay, this is the component of the weather. There are five components. The first is temperature, air pressure, air humidity, wind, and the last is rain or rainfall. So about the temperature, temperature is a measure of how hot or cold something it is. The air temperature in one place will be different from the other place. The second is air pressure. Air pressure is a force that arises due to the weight of the air layer. The amount of the air pressure in a place can change. The third is air humidity. Air humidity is the movement of air caused by the uneven heating of the earth by the sun and the earth's own rotation. The fourth is wind. Wind is air that moves from the maximum pressure area or the high area to the minimum pressure area or in the low area. And the last is rain. Rain on rainfall is an intensity or amount of rain that falls on an area within a certain time. So this is the process of weather occurrence. Weather and climate are two conditions that are almost the same but different in the understanding, especially toward the period of time. So about the weather, weather is an yearly from associated with the interpretation and understanding of the physical condition of the air momentary at a location and at a time, while the climate is a condition of advance and it is a collection of weather conditions that are then compiled and calculated in the form of average weather condition with a certain period of time. Climate is not just about average weather because there is no adequate climate concept without appreciation for daily weather change and seasonal weather change and a succession of weather episodes caused by ever-changing atmospheric disturbance. The influence of weather and climate on life. Climatology is a small part of meteorology. In studying climatology, in advance it is necessary to know the definition of weather and climate. So at the different place and time, the weather will be different anyway. The climate is the course of weather condition or the whole of weather symptom in the certain area over a long period of the time. The climate of a place is determined by a number of climatic elements such as temperature, air bending, precipitation, wind speed, length of solar illumination, and so on. So in the picture, you can see the weather forest casting in our Earth. Okay, continue. The influence of climate on life is enormous, but this does not mean that between climate and life there is always a causal link. Human can change the climate. All human can do is influence the climate influence. For example, by creating greenhouses, making artificial rains, etc. There are three forms of climate influence on life. The first is effect when temperature remain, but the amount of rain change. The second effect when temperature change and amount of rain is adequate. And the last is influence of climate in time or season. So the example is greenhouses effect for our life. Okay, the next is about climate. Nah, climate is the synthesis or conclusion of change in the elemental value of weather, day by day and month after month, in the long term, somewhere or in a region. The synthesis can also be interpreted as a statistical value that include average, maximum, minimum frequency of occurrence. Climate is often said to be the statistical value of long-term weather in a place or region. Climate can also be interpreted as a nature of weather in a place or region. Climate element consists of a solar radiation, temperature, humidity, rain, and wind. This is the picture of the climate. So, climate element. The first is solar radiation. Solar radiation is an event that occurs in the atmosphere that is considered important for the search of life. Solar energy is the main cause of change and movement in the atmosphere so that it can be considered a climate and weather control. The sun emits light that generally has short wave, while from the earth are emitted long wave. The second is temperature or air temperature. Temperature is a degree or of heat or cold measured on a specific scale using a thermometer. The surface temperature of the Earth is influenced by several factors, including the first is amount of solar radiation received per year season, and per day. The second, influence of land or ocean. The third, influence of altitude of the place. The fourth is indirect wind influence. The next is latent heat influence, ground cover, soil type, and the last is the influence of angles come sunlight. The third is about humidity. Humidity is the amount of moisture present in the air. The circumstance of the flooding on the Earth's surface vary. In general, high humidity is at the equator while the lowest at the latitude is 400. The amount of humidity of an area is a factor that can stimulate. Okay, the next about rainfall will present by Aulia Eka Rahma. Aulia Eka Rahma, time and place is yours.
All right, thank you, Rizky. And I want to continue Rizky's presentation. And the component of climate is the fourth is rainfall. The influence of moisture of plant is seen in the change of stomata that become open or closed. Areas that have high humidity cause the stomata to be closed so that carbon dioxide that becomes the staple of photosynthesis cannot enter the leaves. The result is to reduce the occurrence of evaporation. On the contrary, the areas of places with low humidity then evaporation occurs more. Jadi, yang keempat itu ada curah hujan. Curah hujan ini mempengaruhi kelembapan pada tanaman dan berpengaruh pada penguapan. Sehingga pada tanaman, kelembapan ini dapat menentukan fotosintesis pada tanaman. Selanjutnya, The fifth is wind. Wind is the movement of transfer of air mass from one place to another horizontally. Air mass is air in the very large size that has uniform physical properties in a horizontal direction. The nature of air mass is determined by the area where the air mass occurs, the path through which the air mass travels, and the lifespan of the air mass. Wind movement comes from high pressure area to low pressure area. Yang kelima ada angin. Angin adalah perpindahan massa udara dari satu tempat ke tempat yang lain. Asal dari angin sendiri adalah pergerakan udara dari tempat yang tinggi ke tempat yang rendah. Selanjutnya, alright, the last is rain. Rain is a liquid precipitation in contrast to non-liquid precipitation such as snow, ice cubes, and silts. Rain requires the presence of a thick layer of atmosphere in order to meet temperatures above the melting point, ice near and above the Earth's surface. Jadi hujan ini terjadi karena awan yang terisi penuh dengan embun yang menjadi air dan jatuh ke permukaan bumi. Selanjutnya, alright, this is first climates in Indonesia. Climate season, tropical climate or hot ocean climate. The monsoon climate is a climate influenced by monsoon winds that change every given period. There are two climates in Indonesia is west monsoon wind. The western monsoon wind is the wind that blows from the Asian continent to the Australian continent, while the east monsoon winds are the opposite. The western monsoon wind will cause the climate to rain, and the second is east monsoon wind. Meanwhile, the eastern monsoon wind will cause a dry season. In general, one change in monsoon winds from western monsoon to east or vice versa occurs every 6 months, namely the west monsoon wind in October until April and the eastern monsoon winds until April and October. Next, marine climate. This is climate certainly related to the sea condition in Indonesia. We all know that Indonesia is a maritime country. Many areas of our country are sea areas. Because Indonesia is face sea, this allows for more evaporation of water. Because of its many evaporation, there will be many clouds forming. This has an impact of our rainfall, which tends to be high as well. And then tropical climate, because the territory of Indonesia is located from 6 lintang utara sampai 11 lintang selatan. That means our territory is in the tropical zone 23,5 derajat lintang utara sampai 23,5 derajat lintang selatan. That means again Indonesia will get solar illumination throughout the year. The impact is the air temperature tends to be high humidity. Next. And then season. Definition events that occur in each year based on the weather condition within a certain distance and time. Generally, one year is divided into 4 seasons, namely spring, summer, autumn, and winter. However, because Indonesia is located in the tropics, Indonesia only has 2 seasons, namely rainy season and dry season. Jadi, merupakan kondisi cuaca di setiap daerah dengan rentang waktu tertentu. Di Indonesia memiliki 2 musim, yaitu musim penghujan dan juga musim kemarau. Selanjutnya, periods of season. Spring. Spring is a condition in certain areas experiences dense vegetation and trees from the snow seasons. In Northern Hemisphere, spring occurs between February until April. In the Southern Hemisphere, spring occurs between August until October. Characteristics of spring are regrowth, also called the flower season. The day is longer than the night, and the spring is beautiful. Next. Summer. Summer is a condition in certain areas increase very hot air. In the northern hemisphere, it occurs between May until July. In the southern hemisphere, it occurs between November until January. Characteristic of summer is Dry trees, air pollution, the water becomes smoky, and it's hard to get water. And then autumn. Autumn is a condition where plants and leaves begin to fall. Autumns begin on September 1st and ends November 30 for the northern hemisphere, while for the southern hemisphere it starts on 1st March and ends 31st May. Characteristic of autumn is fallen leaves. It can be called harvest season and the day is shorter than the night. Next. And then winter. Winter is a cold and snowy condition. The northern hemisphere occurs between November and January. The southern hemisphere occurs between May and July. Sun all year round. The impact is air temperature tends to be high, humidity is high. Characteristics of winter are the air feels cold, 80% cold and 20% is hot. Also cold snow season, frequent auroras on the ceiling and animals doing activities in the nest. And this is reference for our presentation. And that's all for our presentation. Massive thank you for you readers and for watching our presentation. Thank you.
Semoga ilmu yang kami berikan dapat bermanfaat bagi kita semua dan dapat diterapkan dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari. Terima kasih dan selamat siang untuk kita semua.